Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Swing Good Torah. Today we're going to start reading an incredible story. It's probably just going to be chapter 1 today, but hopefully B'ezrat Hashem will keep reading chapter after chapter. It's a story about Rabbeinu Gershom and his life. It's like the Princess Bride. I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible story. You're going to see his life is like it's fairy tale. It's amazing. So this story is Rabbeinu Gershom Meor HaGolah, the Light of the Exile, and it's written by Dr. Marcus Lehman. Okay, so let's jump right in. So Constantinople, in the year 976, queen of the cities, all the beauties and marvels of Rome, London, and Paris would fade almost to nothingness beside the splendor and wealth of ancient Constantinople. Apologize if I'm not saying that right. So hardly anything remains today of the old Constantinople, when she was at the height of her glory, power, wealth, and progress, residence of the mightiest rulers, trading center of the world, hub of the Orient. From her vast empire and subject nations, she exacted enormous tributes. Her markets overflowed with the choicest products of Persia, India, Egypt, Russia, Spain, and Italy. Emperor Johann Semestius had died, and on his throne sat the two crown princes, Basil and Constantine. They were very different from one another. Constantine, a pleasure-loving fellow, spent his days seeking fresh adventure and amusements, while Basil, serious-minded, took the reins of government in his youthful hands and proceeded to rule wisely and well, courageously, and he threw out from the palace the corrupt officers, the fawning and smiling parasites. Two field marshals, greatly provoked by the young prince's boldness, instigated the people to revolt against him. Basil proved himself a crafty and foresighted monarch. Using whatever means he could, Basil managed to create a feud between the two marshals, so that in a short while they were far too engrossed in their personal fight to give much thought to their revolutionary activities. Shrewdly, resolutely, he conquered the enemies that threatened his empire, defeating the Bulgars who warred on Greece, and secured his throne on the firm foundations of peace and internal unity. Basil now diverted his energies to his many subjects, seeking to better their lot. And here again, he was highly successful. The star of wealth and ease that shone over Constantinople continued to glow brighter and brighter. Not only was Constantinople the trading center of the Orient, but she was fast becoming a center of scholarship and education as well. While the kings of Europe had sunk in a swamp of bigotry, barbarism, and brutal wars that impoverished and weakened their peoples, Basil strove to enlighten his subjects. From far and near, he invited to his court the greatest scholars, teachers, and thinkers of his time, generously bestowing upon them grants and many privileges in order that they might work unhampered for the enlightenment and progress of his people. Among the many scholars who dwelt in Constantinople was a Jew called Rabbi Gershom ben Yehudah. Rabbi Gershom was a goldsmith, a master of his craft. Throughout the world, the beautiful gold and silver objects wrought in his smithy were renowned. In the homes of the aristocracy of Constantinople, the work of the Frenchman, as he was called, was ever in great demand. Rabbi Gershom was born in the city of Metz, which then belonged to France. Even as a child, Gershom had shown a keen interest in his Torah studies and Jewish lore. As he grew older, he searched eagerly for new and richer sources from which to draw upon in his studies. When the fame of the city of Mainz, home of many great Jewish scholars, reached his ears, he jumped at the opportunity to study with the great rabbis and Talmudists of the times. Gershom left his native city and set out for Mainz. At the time that Gershom arrived in Mainz, the chief rabbi, Colonimus, had resigned his position and departed for France. The position of chief rabbi was filled by Rabbi Leon, a man famed not only for his great knowledge of the Torah and Talmud, but for his vast store of secular learning as well. Although the study of the Talmud is never an easy matter, in those days it was much more difficult than it is today. For the great scholars who explained and interpreted the Talmud for all generations were not to appear on the scene for many years to come. The Rambam, the Rashba, the Ramah, and Rashi, and many others had not yet written the works that shed light on the obscure passages of Torah and Talmud. There were no other aids to understanding of the Talmud save one's own diligence and sincerest efforts. Even as a student, Rabbi Gershom realized that the great shortage of truly fine teachers who thoroughly understood the Talmud was a serious obstacle to the many willing students of Jewish law, Jewish halacha. While he studied, Gershom noted in the margin the comments his learned teacher, Rabbi Leon, made so that the students, using the same books after he had used them, would find it much easier to study by themselves. So Gershom knew that a stay in Mainz must soon come to an end. He would have to go elsewhere to attain new achievements in his studies. And what did elsewhere mean, if not Pumbedisa, the great Torah yeshiva of Babylon, of Bavel? After the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, by Nebuchadnezzar in the year 33-38, the great teachers and rabbis of the Holy Land were exiled to Babylon. Thus Babylon, Bavel, early became a center of Torah study. When the Beis HaMikdash was rebuilt by Ezra and Nehemiah 70 years later, Bavel continued to play an important role in Torah scholarship, to keep alive the Jewish laws and traditions among the exiled Jews. The teachers and leaders had established Torah yeshivas in Bavel, of which two, the yeshivas of Sura and Pumbedisa, later attained great and historic importance. During the era of the Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, under the influence of Greek culture Hellenism, the Jews of the Holy Land occupied themselves with worldly affairs and devoted little time to the study of Torah. Chas v'shalom. It was greatly feared by Jewish leaders that the Torah would be completely forgotten in the Holy Land, in Eretz Yisrael. Then the renowned Hillel came from Bavel, from Babylon, to renew the study of the Torah among the Jews in the Holy Land, and to infuse them with a new spirit and love for their culture. The destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash, the second temple, in the year 3828 did not disrupt the study of the Torah, thanks to the efforts of the great Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai and his students, eventually about the year 4000. By the way, it's the earliest year Mashiach could come. Rabbi Yehudah Hanasi compiled the oral law, the Torah Shel Ba'al Peh, into the Mishnayos, the Mishnahs, and this marked the end of the Tanaic period. The scholars at the yeshivas now engaged in the study, interpretation, and elaboration of the Mishnayos, and were called Amoraim. The last of them, Rav Ashi and Ravina, together with other great teachers in Bavel, collected and arranged the discussions and laws that accumulated around the Mishnayos to form the Gemara, or Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. For many years, the two great yeshivot of Bavel and Sura and Pumbedisa flourished under the leadership of the Reish Galusa, the descendant of King David, the head, the king of the exile, and the Goanim. After the death of Rav Chai Gaon, one of the last of the Goanim, the yeshiva Sura dispersed, but the yeshiva Pumbedisa continued to function as the world center of Jewish scholarship. It was to this Torah yeshiva and its inspiring Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Shirira Gaon, that Rabbeinu Gershom looked with longing eyes. After marrying the lovely Devorah, Rabbi Leon's daughter, Rabbi Gershom set out for distant Babylon. The years that followed were years of growth and progress in Rabbi Gershom's studies. His eager mind constantly sought new channels through which to increase his store of knowledge. Only a short time passed before Rabbi Gershom acquired facility in several foreign tongues. With remarkable ease, he mastered the manifold secrets of the natural sciences. Above all, he preferred the metallurgical sciences, the study of metals, their composition, and the art of molding them. It was this craft that Rabbi Gershom had chosen for his livelihood so that he could employ it as a means of subsistence during the time when he was occupied with the writing of his commentary on the Gemara, or the Talmud. A sad and unforeseen event suspended Rabbi Gershom's studies for some time. Sorrowful tidings came from Metz, informing him that his beloved father had died. Broken-hearted, Rabbi Gershom immediately departed for his native city to mourn the death of his father there. En route to France, Rabbi Gershom had occasion to pass through the capital of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, and to spend a considerable length of time there while awaiting passage on a boat bound for France. Attracted by the great influx of trade in this splendid city, Rabbi Gershom decided to make his home there. Here, in luxury-loving Constantinople, the rich would be quick to recognize his skilled craftsmanship, and he could earn a name for himself. Teeming with life and culture, this metropolis would offer new possibilities of scholastic achievement both in his secular and Jewish studies. After Rabbi Gershom's return to Metz, where he had mourned his father's death, he sold all the immovable possessions which he had inherited from his father and set out for Mainz. where Rabbi Leon and his daughter Devorah eagerly awaited his arrival. With a sinking heart, Rabbi Leon listened to Gershom's plans for the future. Constantinople, thousands of miles away. How would he miss his daughter and his son-in-law? It seemed to Rabbi Leon that time had suddenly sprouted wings, for here so soon was the very day of their departure for Constantinople. Who will undertake to describe the heart-rending farewell between father and daughter, father and son-in-law? Those tears are best left uncounted. Those sighs are best left untold. But the fond hopes and the good wishes of Rabbi Leon brighten the dark hours of the perilous journey that loomed before Rabbi Gershom and Devorah. In dark hours they were indeed. How can we today conceive of the endless difficulties that beset the traveler of the 10th century? Can we picture ourselves traveling through foreign lands, filled with barbarian tribes who do not hesitate to kill a stranger on sight, or unpaved roads that lead through terrifying forests, filled with beasts of prey, or thieves and robber bands who lie waiting in ambush along the roads for victims? Thieves so brutal that the least opposition means certain death. No wonder, then, that it was with great relief that Rabbi Gershom and Devorah finally arrived safely at their destination. Rabbi Gershom lost no time in turning his plans to actuality. During the day, he wrought delicate, superbly fashioned masterpieces of gold and silver in his smithy. Night found him bent over his table, his mind lost in the Talmud. Constantinople was true to Rabbi Gershom's expectations of it. His goldsmithy grew in renown from day to day. In the homes of the wealthy merchants, in the palaces of the aristocracy, his gold and silver wares were sought after and prized as choice possessions. Wealth and importance in the eyes of Jew and non-Jew alike came easily to the Frenchman, as Gershom was called in Constantinople. But all his success and riches could not compensate him for the bitterness of the passing years that brought no child into his home. Okay, that was chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you back soon on Sweet and Good Torah.